Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So this is ISKCON Africa.
Yes, Prabhuji. So,
Right.
dear devotees, we thank you all for being here today, as always. Today is Tuesday, the 23rd of April, 2024. And today we have His Grace Kripanidhi Prabhu. Prabhuji has been so kind. He's been on our platform, I think once or twice. And
Once, I think.
Once, okay. So this is the second time. And we're very grateful to having your association again. Of course, we'll let devotees know a little bit more about you since this is just the second time. But we'll do that at the end of the class, by which time we would have had more devotees come in. So, Prabhuji, without further ado, you may start. I do not know if you want to chant Jai Radha Madhava, you may do so. Yes, you may do so. And then after that, we'll put the verse on the screen. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanidhari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanidhari. Yashoyanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoyanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama
Hare
Rama
Rama
Rama Rama Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Right.
So we are reading from Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. And I was given text 1, 2, and then text 3 with the purport. So I'll just read the first 2 verses, Sanskrit and English, and then go to text 3. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nasta Preshu Abadeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Text 1. Shri Sukha Uvacha Atra Sargo Visargascha Stanam Poshanam Uttaya Manvantare Shanukata Nirodha Muktirashraya. Translation. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: creation of the universe, sub-creation, planetary systems, protections by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of Manus, the signs of God, returning home back to Godhead, liberation, and the summum bonum. Text 2. Dashamasya vishuddhyartam navanamiha lakshanam varnayanti mahatmanaha shutenartena chanjasa. To isolate the transcendence of the summum bonum, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanation given by the great sages. Text number 3. Bhuta matrendriya diyam janma sarga udaritaha brahmano guna vaisham yad visharga purusha smitaha. Bhuta matrendriya diyam janma sarga udaritaha brahmano guna vaisham yad visharga purusha smitaha. Bhuta, the 5 gross elements, the sky, etc. Matra, objects perceived by the senses. Indriya, the senses. Dhyam, of the mind. Janma, creation. Sarga, manifestation. Udaritaha is called the creation. Brahmana, of Brahma, the first Purusha. Gunavaishamyat, by interaction of the 3 modes of nature. Visarga, recreation. Purusha, resultant activities. Smritaha, it is so known. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The elementary creation of 16 items of matter, namely the 5 elements, fire, water, land, sky, air and sky, sound, form, taste, smell, and touch, and the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, skin, and mind, is known as sarga, whereas subsequent resultant interaction of the modes of material nature is called visarga. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In order to explain the 10 divisional symptoms of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 7 continuous verses. The first of these under reference pertains to the 16 elementary manifestations of earth, water, etc., with material ego composed of material intelligence and mind. The subsequent creation is a result of the reactions of the above mentioned 16 energies of the first Purusha, or the Mahavishnu incarnation of Govinda, as later explained by Brahma in his treatise Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, 47th verse, as follows. Ya karanarva jale bhajati smayoga nidram ananta jagadanda saromakupaha adara shaktim avalambya param swamurtim govindam hari purusham tamaham bhajami. The first Purusha incarnation of Govinda, Lord Krishna, known as Mahavishnu, goes into a yoga nidra mystic sleep, and the innumerable universes are situated in potency in each and every hair hole of his transcendental body. As mentioned in the previous verse, Shrutena, or with reference to the Vedic conclusions, the creation is made possible from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly by manifestation of his particular energies. Without such a Vedic reference, the creation appears to be a product of material nature. This conclusion comes from a poor fund of knowledge. From Vedic reference, it is concluded that the origin of all energies, namely internal, external, and marginal, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as explained here before, the illusory conclusion is that creation is made by the inert material nature. The Vedic conclusion is transcendental light, whereas the non-Vedic conclusion is material darkness. The internal potency of the Supreme Lord is identical with the Supreme Lord, and the external potency is enlivened in contact with the internal potency. The part and parcels of the internal potency, which reacts in contact with the external potency, are called the marginal potency or the living entities. Thus, the original creation is directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Para Brahman, and the secondary creation, as a reactionary result of the original ingredients, is made by Brahma. Thus, the activities of the whole universe are started. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gina Gina Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Gena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So it was mentioned here in the first verse that there are 10 themes within the Srimad Bhagavatam Purana: creation of the universe, sub-creation, and that is what is being described here in Srila Prabhupada's purport, and a description also of the elementary items. So, Bhumi Apunalo Vayu Kamano Buddhiye Vicha Ahankara Mitiyame Bina Prakritir Astada. So these are the inert matter, elements of inert matter: earth, air, fire, water, mind, intelligence, and false ego. But above this, we hear that are the living entities, or the internal potency of the Lord, as described here, which enlivens dead matter. Here, Prabhupada says that the non-Vedic conclusion is material darkness. So this is touching on the epistemology question. Like, why do I know what I know? What is the foundation of knowledge? Well, the atheistic scientists today, they claim that with my six senses, and the mind, of course, with my six senses, if I don't intersect with life or God, then it doesn't exist. So they restrict themselves to what is called empiricism, or using the six senses externally, which is very foolish, because they have no idea what is consciousness. And if we ask the question of, can you put love under a microscope? They say, no, we can't. So there are many aspects, as Albert Einstein said, there are many aspects of reality and dimensions which we cannot approach with the experimental process in the laboratories. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Name Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavitaha Mudhoyam Nabijanati Mamabhyam Param Avyayam. That the foolish rascal, Mudho Nabijanati, He can never know me because I don't reveal anything to that person because he's convinced by his epistemological assumption. It's merely an assumption that all reality can be arrived at through the empirical, the reductionistic process, that we can take something, we can reduce it down to its basic building blocks, and then we can address, completely explain what it is. Apariyamitas tvanya prakriti vidime param jiva bhuta maha baho yayedam daryake jagat. So Krishna says these elements are being supported by the spirit souls. Jiva Bhuta Mahabaho Yayedam Daryate Jagat. Throughout this entire universe. Now, we are hearing also about Karana Dakshay Vishnu, who is an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of Krishna. So we have Krishna, then we have Lord Balaram, and then we have the quadruple expansions, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Vasudev. And from Vasudev, correct me if I'm wrong, but from Vasudev, we have Karanadaksha, the Purusha avatars. So Karanadaksha Vishnu is lying in the Vairagya. It's a river which separates the Vaikuntha planets from the Ekabad Vibhushi, or the material planets. So here, Prabhupada is touching on the fact that one cannot in any way understand the reality of creation through this process of empiricism, reductionism, positivism. Basically, the technique for understanding things is called a controlled experiment. But we can only control things which are inferior to us. Therefore, if the soul, as in the Bhagavad Gita, it's described, Indriyani Pranayahur, Indriyani Paramanahas, Manasastu Para Buddhir, Yo Buddhi Parato Tu Saha. The soul is superior to intelligence, the false ego, the intelligence, then the material mind, and then the senses, and then dead matter. So when people say natural selection, that's how things came about. They call it abiogenesis, like matter gives rise to life. They have no clue. They have no idea. This model that they have called the primordial soup, where they say that there was this large lake 15 billion years ago, and then there was some amino acids, some ammonia, and some other elements were there, and an electric bolt from the sky hit it, and you got some amino acids, and then somehow you got proteins, and then gradually some slithering creatures came out of the lake, and gradually by natural selection on genetic mutation, you got different species. That is pure speculation. They can't demonstrate it. They have no idea, even in their multi-million-dollar laboratories, say in the US, England, wherever, Germany, they have no idea how to produce even the basic building blocks to produce a living cell. You need protein molecules, you need lipids, which are fatty molecules, you need carbohydrates, and then they have to synthesize all these things from scratch without any help, any stealing from nature. And then, of course, you have nucleic acids, which are the genetic materials within the cell. They have not even a clue. In fact, the more they discover in their laboratories about the complex nature of the cell with all its little molecular machines running around and various ways of transporting these molecular machines from one part of the cell to the other, and how the whole thing is working in a great factorial way, like a factory. And it's all driven by information, just like a computer is driven by software. You have the binary system. So within the cell, everything's driven by code. So code, when we see code, we know there's a designer behind it. So here, we're understanding, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samritaha. That I am the source of both the spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So right from the get-go, from their foundation, philosophical foundation, epistemology, they're simply of the opinion that God doesn't exist. So Krishna says, yes, Arjuna, there's two types of human beings in this world. There's the divine and there is the demonic. And don't worry, Arjuna, you are not demonic. And then Krishna goes on to illustrate and describe the qualities of the demon. Asatyam apratishtam te jagadahura nishvaram aparasparam sambhutam kimanyat kam ahoitukam. They say that the world is simply temporary. Apratishto, there's no one running it. There's no foundation. There's nothing holding these things. Jagat Ahur Anishram, the entire universe that we look at with all the various planets, Pluto, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, the pole star, Druvaloka, and so on and so forth, the Shishumar planetary system, the galaxies. They say there's nothing that's supporting this system. There's no one created it. It just happened by some amazing, mysterious stroke of luck. Aparasparam sambhutam kimanyat kamahoitukam. Therefore, they say the only purpose of human life is to gratify each other's senses, simply to enjoy, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we will die. No idea about who you are. Asochanan vasochastram pragyavasam savasate. Gatasunagatasuncha nanu sochanti panditaha. Arjuna, you're not very learned if you don't know the difference between life and death. They have no idea how to take, as Prabhupada said, I'll give you a body right here. It just died a second ago. You bring it back to life. If it's only chemicals, here, all the chemicals, you make it come back to life. Otherwise, why talk about it? So no one knows. They have no idea, not a clue, but they're cheating. They're all cheaters. All these big, what we call knowledge elites in the universities. Namam duskritina mudha prapadyante naradama. Mayaya aparita jnana asuram bhavam ashritaha. Mayaya aparita jnana. They're busy studying molecules and laws of physics, speculating about what is outside of their little froggy wells. And they come to the conclusion, yes, why do we need God? There's no God. Well, how can you produce even a moral platform if there's no God, if there's nothing outside of social relative ideas of morality? Morality has to be absolute. It can't just be relative. I say this is moral and this is not moral. It's your subjective opinion. Where's the objectivity if there's no God? So therefore, Krishna clearly claims in the Gita to Arjuna that Bhoktaram Yagitapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that he is the Maheshwaram, he is the Lord of all the planets. And by his expansion as Karanadaksha Vishnu, he is lying in this Vairagya river, and from the pores of his body comes multi-universes. So these so-called scientists are speculating about multi-universes. But we know that behind the entire universe, just like there's cause and effect. So we see the effects within our universe is that there are persons, they're living beings with personal qualities, with drives and motives. We live in also in a teleological universe where there's purpose. Everything has a purpose. We wake up and when the sun is rising, oh, without the sun, there'd be no life. We wake up and there's oxygen in the air. Oh, without oxygen. Is it a coincidence? Krishna is saying there's no such thing as just chance. As Prabhupada challenged one scientist who said, everything just happened by accident. Prabhupada said, is your death an accident? No, it's 100% universal law that everyone, ahani ahani bhutani gachantiya yamalayam. Everyone is going to meet Lord Yamaraj. Shesha stavaram ichanti kimischaramataparam. Yudhisthira Maharaj tells the Yaksha, who is Lord Yamaraj at the lake of death, that the greatest wonder in the world is that everyone is moving towards death, but no one thinks that they could die tomorrow. No one's thinking I'm on the precipice of death, you know. So all these universes contain a Lord Brahma, and he is empowered by the Lord for the secondary creation. And within that creation, we learn that there are 14 manvantaras. We learn that the sun is restricted to a certain area. We learn that our particular universe is 4 billion miles in diameter, and that there are 7 islands with oceans made of liquor, sweet water, salt water, uh, uh, yogurt, ghee. These are beyond the imagination of any foolish scientist. They don't have the tools. Their tools are all produced by imperfect senses. We have 4 flaws as human beings or living beings, that we have imperfect senses, we make mistakes, we're always in illusion, and we like to cheat. We have a cheating propensity. So Prabhupada said these scientists who claim they can explain how the universe came into being, they are simply cheaters and liars. That's all they are. Prabhupada called them rascals. So take full knowledge. The knowledge is coming from Krishna. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. That the Lord from within the heart, Tesham Ivanukam Partam Aham Jnana Jamtamaha Nashamatmiyat Svabhavastu Jnana Deepena Bashpata. That within the heart of Brahma, within the heart of Krishna's devotees, as we surrender to Krishna, as we engage in the Dharma, Dharma Swanustita Pumsan Vishvakshena Katasayat, that we are practicing Sanatan Dharma, and Dharma is created by God himself. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Navai durishya napi deva. Not even the rishis can produce the rules of religion, the laws of God. Only God can do that. No human being can create all these things. Krishna is omniscient, omnipotent. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate natatshamascha vyadikastra dushyate. Savasya shaktir vivihaiva shriyate. Swabhavaki jnana bala kriya cha. Krishna can do anything at any time with any one of his senses, and he's a completely and totally unlimited. Intelligence is unlimited, and he's doing these things without any effort. He's not perspiring. As Prabhupada said, I think in the 9th chapter, that God is not like Atlas holding up the Earth planet and straining to hold it up. Actually, Krishna's incarnation as Shesha, Lord Shesha, is holding up the Bhumandala area on his heads. At the bottom of the universe is half filled with the Garbhodak ocean. And at that in that area, Sheshanag, who is an incarnation of Lord Balaram, is holding up on his millions of hoods all these different oceans, these different islands. Maharaj Priyavrata, when we read about him, we hear that he was so powerful in his mystic yoga that with his many chariots, the wheels created troughs in the Bhumandala area where the sun's rays extend, and that he created these various islands, of which our Bharatvarsha, one of 7 areas on Jambu Dweep, which is in the center, where Mount Meru extends for 800,000 miles up in the air, or 100,000 yojanas, that all these things have been created by the empowered Maharaj Priyavrata, who is a descendant of Manu. So these things, either we accept or don't accept, but we accept them because we understand that this is revealed knowledge coming from God himself. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam navai vidurishya napi deva. Siddha mukhya asura manusya kuton yud vidyadara charanadaya. That in the 6th canto, Yamaraj is saying, no demigod, no demon, no human, no rishi, no one except Krishna can give us perfect knowledge, which is given to us here, the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the Vedic literatures are given to us by an incarnation of Krishna called Veda Dvaipayana Veda Vyasadeva, right? And Dharma Projita Kaitravotra Paramoni Matsaranam Satam, kicking out all materially motivated religions. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest truth. The truth is that which separates illusion from reality for the benefit of all beings. Vedyam Vasadam Aturchivadam Tapan Trayan Mulanam. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Payar Ishvaraha. It has been given by Veda Vyas himself for the benefit of the entire world, for the light of this world. Otherwise, Prabhupada's saying here that disagreement or non-Vedic conclusions is merely material darkness. They have no clue, nor will they ever, not even their descendants will ever come to understand the actual structure and how this entire creation came about. Of course, Krishna has to fulfill the desires of the living entities. So he's created this huge Maya sadhana, this material world, which he says, Mama Maya Durachaya Daiviyesha Gunamaya. This material world with all its complex influences of the various modes of nature, Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun, all the various demigods running the universe, 33 million demigods are running the universe under the aegis of Krishna himself. Krishna, of course, is in Goloka Vrindavan, the lotus flower of all the spiritual worlds, the world of the lotus flower is Goloka Vrindavan, where he's simply having his transcendental pastimes and loving relationships with the inhabitants of Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan. Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu Kalpaviksha Lakshavite Shusara Birabi Paliantam Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That the supreme summum bonum of everything is Govinda. And he has relationships which are perfectly pure with Mother Yashoda, with his friends, Sridham, Subal, all these Sakyarasas, so many. And we're talking about trillions of cowherd boys. And the cows there are Sarabi cows, which supply whatever one wants to offer to Krishna. And the wish-fulfilling trees, Kalpavriksha trees are everywhere, offering whatever you want to offer to Krishna. This is the spiritual world where there is no anxiety. Time is conspicuous by its absence. No time there. Krishna creates time. Ayur harati vai pumsam udyanyastanchayana so. Tatkara lipidonacha uttama shloka vartaya. Both by the rising and setting, the sun decreases the life of everyone except those who glorify Uttama Shloka. The Supreme Lord is Uttama Shloka, one who is glorified by wonderful, transcendental glorifications. So the sun is rising and setting and taking away our lives, stealing our lives. But in the spiritual world, there's the absence of time. Kalosmi Bharatarshaba, Krishna says, I am time. The time is one of the elements of Lord Krishna, one of the energies of Lord Krishna. So, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Krishna says in the 13th chapter that one who is knowledgeable sees the evils of birth, death, old age, and disease, and one doesn't waste his time trying to eke out some kind of happiness and security and pleasure here in this prison house of the material world. Mamupeja punar janma dukalayama shashvatam. Napnovanti mahatmana samsidim paramam gatim. That Krishna, our God, is saying that those who surrender to me, they become free from this place of dukalayama shashvatam, misery. Everywhere, Prabhupada said, just like you go into a cave made of salt, it's full of salt. Wherever you touch it, whether it's heavenly planets, the lower planets, the lower hellish planets, where there's no light extended there from the sun. Wherever you go in this world, even Lord Brahma was in anxiety. Even Lord Shiva, he gave a benediction to a demon called Vrikasura. Vrikasura was cutting flesh, offering it into the yagya fire. And then Lord Shiva wasn't responding. So then he thought, let me cut my head off. And so he wet himself like an animal. And then he's going to cut his head off. And Lord Shiva appeared. And Asutosh, Lord Shiva, is easily pleased and easily, annoyed or, easily easily angered. So the demon asked Lord Shiva for a benediction that whosever head he touches will blow up into pieces. And Lord Shiva, okay, no problem. That's what you want. The demons always want some kind of dark, evil benediction. So then Lord Shiva found himself being chased by the demon, trying to kill him. So even Lord Shiva, the great, great devotee of the Lord, who has unlimited power, his wife is Parvati, the material energy personified. She's causing so much suffering to all living entities, trying to teach them the lesson that you don't want to stay here in this world. You want to go back to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, Vaikuntha, as you will. He himself is enduring some anxiety, some problems by his benedictions. Even Lord Brahma had so many problems. He was overwhelmed by lust for his daughter, and he had to give up his body and made it into fog. So Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartinojana, Mamu Pecha Punar Janma Naiti Mameti Surjana. Krishna tells Arjuna whether it's Brahma Loka or the lower planets, all are places of misery where continual birth and death take place. So these verses are here to first of all explain to people in general, the society in general, how the creation, how Krishna has manifested cosmos, how the cosmos came into being, and how after some time, that is maintained for some time, the cosmos is maintained for some time, And then after some time, there's the secondary annihilation, and then there's a complete annihilation where everything is burned up. And this is just one breath of Karana Vishnu, which is 311 trillion years is the lifetime of Brahma. 311, they have no idea what that means. The demoniac fools and rascals, they have no idea. But it's there. We know that one day of Brahma, there is 1,000 Divya Yugas, or 4 Yugas taken together 1,000 times, comprises 1 day of Brahma. And then you get the night of Brahma. So that is 4,800,000,000 human years. Not so many by demigod calculation, perhaps 3,600 or something like that. Yes, it's 100 years of Lord Brahma. So you multiply by 360 and you got 36,000 years by the demigods. So that is just one day of Lord Brahma. And then there's the night of Brahma where everything goes into partial dormancy. And this entire egg type universe, which is covered completely by darkness, because all the layers, Bhumir Apanalo Vayu Kamano, all the different 8 layers, the next one is twice as thick as the first one. These are coverings of this entire universe. It's not just some unlimited space that we're talking about. So this is a description, and the great sages who are beyond the influence of the 4 defects, because they're connected to Krishna, they're empowered to understand this. And Vedavyas is empowered to explain these points, these different elements within the Vedic knowledge. And this is real knowledge, beginning from the very beginning that Aham Brahmasmi, I am a conscious eternal being. I don't die. I can't be cut by a weapon or burnt by fire, moistened by water, withered by wind. No, I'm a soul, transcendental to the material body, which is called Kunape Tridatuke, a bag made of 3 elements, mucus, bile, and air. That's what it is. So this is the beginning of knowledge. And then Krishna said in the 17th chapter, Uttama Purushattvane Paramatmeti Udaritaha. Yo loko trayamavishya bhabarti avyaya ishvaraha. He says there's a soul, duimo purusho loko sharam aksharam evacha. There's 2 types of souls. One is always liberated in the spiritual world, and one is conditioned. Akshara doimo purusho loko sharam aksharam evacha. So conditioned and unconditioned. This is described in the 17th chapter, yeah. And then he says, Yasmat Sharam Atitoham Aksharat Apichotamaha. Yoloko Chayam. This is described, Patita Purushotamaha, that I am that supreme person above both the conditioned soul and the liberated soul, is the Supreme Lord. And he also says that he is the Paramatma, which is within the atom, beyond, outside of the atom, and within everyone's heart. As we know, in the 15th chapter, Krishna says that he's in everyone's heart, and he's the source of real knowledge. So from within, we can receive all this perfect knowledge. We can't do it by this demoniac attempts to conquer the world by our own attempts. Not possible. Parabhavas Tavada Bodhajato, and people will simply be faced with defeat. Parabhavas means people meet with defeat, trying to enjoy this world, trying to decipher this world, trying to, analyze this world through speculation. No good. nothing. You'll simply meet with defeat at every step. Unless you ask, who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? And is there something bigger than me? These are the big questions that are being addressed here to Maharaj Parikshit by Sukadev Goswami. So I think I'll end there because it's 9:21 over here in India. And we can open up for some questions or comments from the transcendental devotees. Hare Krishna, thank you for listening.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. His Grace Kripanidhi Prabhu. Wonderful Krishna Katha shared today. Lots of scriptural references to support what you're sharing with us. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, realizations, please you may indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or share your comments or realizations. Prabhuji, your Krishna Katha is so beautiful that I believe lots of devotees may have lots of questions. And I have a question. The question is, oftentimes we hear Srila Prabhupada kind of chastise these scientists, especially like physicists, astrophysicists, and because they're trying to understand God from their field, which, as we understand as devotees, is impossible to fully understand Krishna from that end. But there is also part of same scientists who, by dint of their field, makes them believe in the existence of a supreme being. So you were talking about like in the ancient days, long time ago, people had this belief of spontaneous generation. But even though it reigned for about 2,000 years or so, eventually it's the same type of scientists who came defeating that theory. So my question in brief is, do we have to pick out some of these scientists who do not believe in the supreme force being a force as the cause of all causes, or just because some of them do not believe in the existence of a supreme force behind everything we see or cannot see, we concluded that anyone in such a field is a demonic or is a non-believer? What should be the frame of devotees towards such people?
Well, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, who was inspired by Srila Prabhupada to preach to the top scientists of the world. They're called knowledge elites. And the four major academic institutions are Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and MIT. They kind of set the rules for what the professors and academics should believe or not. And those who stray from the from the atheistic predilection, the atheistic bent of mind, they're usually punished quite strongly. But
Yeah.
many scientists like Eugene Wigner, Charles Towns, um, many others that Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj had relationships with, Sir Roger Penrose, quantum theory. Many of them were quite strongly and surprisingly positively influenced by the Vedic perspective and the Vedic paradigm. So there has been many inroads made by Bhaktivedanta Institute. We don't condemn anyone that they're demons, but if they're vigorously opposed to the existence of God and in a very hostile way, trying to control what students learn and the mindset of the population, those people Prabhupada definitely wants us to um, full assault on these atheistic guys, and it's a big nexus because I'm familiar with scientists who believe in God. I was a member of the Discovery Institute in Seattle, Washington, and that's a Christian-based organization, but these are PhD scientists, and many of them have been, sidelined because of their vocal um, disagreement with the scientific community. That okay, you say atheism, and then to support your atheism, you introduce Darwin's theory of evolution, or you introduce Big Bang or Grand Bang, some naturalistic, they call it naturalistic process for explaining the origin of life, and then for explaining the different speciations. Those persons who draw attention to the defects of these theories, whether it's Big Bang, they get usually they get punished very severely. Fred Hoyle, he's the top astrophysicist in the world, was completely sidelined, lost everything because he questioned the Big Bang theory uh, based on logic, basically, and questioned the theory of evolution. So it's not a level playing field at all, not at all. So devotees, of course, were coming from the outside and approaching mainly students, and Bhakti Swarup Maharaj was approaching top scientists who started to see that if you look under a microscope at these theories of atheism, and if you look at what science is leading us to, and if you follow the science, then there must be a supreme being who's controlling the movement of the planets, who's controlling the distance that each planet has, and there are four kind of forces. There's four forces that govern all the movement of planets in astrophysics. So all these things put together, I mean, if we look back a couple hundred years, we find that the big scientists, Isaac Newton, Boyle, on these guys who were top scientists, they all believe in God. They all accepted that this is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's workings. Somehow it's really devolved into a massive atheistic campaign. And if you bring it up and question their belief, which is basically like a religion, it's based on their, flawed opinions. It's not based on evidence. Then they will punish. They will punish severely. Yeah. So yeah, but for us, we give compassion. We show compassion to everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the explanation, Prabhuji. Because sometimes some of us as devotees make the mistake of generalizing and painting all these scientists with the same painter's brush that they are all demonic, but that is not the case.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
My other question is if Maya, the word Maya means illusion, If the word Maya, which means illusion, and I believe that if there is illusion, then there must be a reality. There must be the corresponding opposite of that. And my bewilderment is, even though I believe that reality exists, but where do you actually find reality? And who actually lives a life of reality? And the reason I'm wondering is that in the material world, we are all being controlled by the Mahamaya, which is illusion. In the spiritual world, the inhabitants are also ruled by Yoga Maya. Whether someone is a good thief or is a bad thief, is a thief. So whether it is Mahamaya or Yoga Maya, divine illusion or mundane illusion, is illusion. So who actually lives a life of reality, and where do you find such beings? This is my bewilderment, Prabhuji.
I'd have to bring up the point that in the Vaikuntha planets, they realize that Lord Narayan is God, and they have the 5 different types of liberation, same opulence as the Lord, same bodily features as the Lord, so on and so forth, the same residence as the Lord. So they understand that he's God. The Yoga Maya potency is arranged so that Krishna can have completely non, venerative relationships, where that experience of motherly protection, motherly maintenance, paternal maintenance is completely uncompromised because of the Yoga Maya. So yes, in the Goloka Vrindavan, those very sophisticated or advanced relationships of paternal or conjugal or so on, they don't care that Krishna is God, nor do they know. And that's far more pleasing to the Lord. In the Vaikuntha planets, it's a different case. Reality, of course, we're talking reality. It's described here in Srimad Bhagavatam and Vedic literatures. The reality is that the living entity, Icha Dvesha Samutena Dvandva Mohin, is born into illusion, overcome by the duality of desire and hate. So because we identify ourselves as this body, subtle and gross body, the reality is we're in illusion. The reality is we're identifying with something temporary when we are something eternal. So that's the reality, is that I'm a spirit soul. So Atato Brahma Jigyasa, we come to the truth, the absolute truth. Brahmiti Bhagavaniti, Paramatmiti Bhagavaniti Shabdite. That's the reality of it. And our realizations are given by the great sages to wake us up. So the material reality is described here in this chapter, the different elements, and then the senses, the modes of material nature which govern the human activities of all different creatures and beings and so on. That's the reality. Ultimately, though, even if someone is not so intellectual or whatever, if he can also develop his love for God. As we see, Lord Chaitanya met this poor devotee who was illiterate, and he was crying because he saw that Krishna had become the servant of Arjuna and driving his chariot. So ultimately, love of God is the ultimate reality, how to love God. And that transcends all other aspects of reality, is that the soul is hankering after this pure love. That is what everyone wants, pure love. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is supplying us with this prema bhakti in a very simple and easy way by following Dharma and chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and Prakshaksha Vagamam Dharmyam. From inside, we start to experience truth and reality. Wow, this is real. Krishna is God. That comes from internal, right? Rajavijay Rajagoyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam. It's an open secret. Prakshaksha Vagamam. That we experience the reality. We experience our spiritual self and the existence of Krishna. He's within our heart, revealing it to us. So these are aspects of reality as far as I could explain, but love of God is the ultimate, how to love Krishna. And Prabhupada was obviously an embodiment of Prema Bhakti, pure love of God. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. Prabhupada is a living example of love of God, empowered by the Lord himself to spread this wonderful experience of Krishna Bhakti throughout the world. So we're very grateful. We have to be very grateful that we're receiving this wonderful gift from Lord Chaitanya and all his devotees, all his empowered devotees. That's my limited understanding of reality.
Well, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Your limited understanding is a very bountiful understanding to me. So thank you so much. So, Madhuvan Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glory, all praise unto your little feet. Thank you very much for this your very wonderful class you gave us. I really appreciate it so much. So for the last question, I think they used to say that the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. The material world is a perverted reflection.
Perverted, yeah.
So I believe that whatever is happening here is just like imitation. You know, we are imitating what is actually happening in the spiritual world. And in the material world, things are temporary. So being temporary is like illusionary, it's illusory. But in the spiritual world, it's permanent. So I think that's where we have the reality, actually. That's my own little understanding of reality and illusion. You know, if what I'm saying makes any sense.
It's a very good point. Very good illustration. Yeah. The spiritual world, material world, upside down tree. As described, you know.
Yeah.
And 13th chapter. And that's the reality.
Yeah.
And we're trying to enjoy, but Krishna is the cynosure. He's the center. And if we put him in the center, then we can go back to the real world. The real reality of ecstatic love of God, eternal love of God. Naiti Mameti Surjana, you never come back again to this horrible place. Yes.
Prabhuji, we understand that, just like you said, Lord Brahma, the father of the universe, lives for over 311 trillion years, which is earthly calculation, which is one cannot just wrap his mind around it, and how that is a possibility for another living being to live such a long time. But that is just one exhalation of Lord Vishnu. Now, when Lord Brahma has completed his 100 years, it is said that all those with him on his planet and 11 entities who have also qualified themselves to go back to the spiritual world, they go. Those who are unable to go back, they merge into the body of Lord Vishnu.
Mhm.
And when Lord Vishnu exhales, then Lord Brahma comes back into existence, and all the 11 beings that went into the body of Lord Vishnu come out. Now, what happens? What happens to the individual souls when Lord Brahma goes to sleep and everything appears finished? It's like there is nothing in existence. Where do the 11 entities go for the time period, the 12-hour sleep period of Lord Brahma? Where do the 11 entities go?
A little of that is described in the 5th canto, that the entire universe is filled up with this garbled water, and the living entities go into a dormant stage within the lotus coming out of the navel of Brahma. But I would have to confess that I don't have much information on that particular secondary annihilation. But obviously they go into a dormant state. That would be my rational, idea, that somehow they go into a dormant state until again, for, the next day of Brahma, the Gabadak water is again reduced. But that's a good question for research. I think the Vishnu Purana actually describes a lot of cosmology. And I'm always trying to find a good copy of the Vishnu Purana. They really focus on cosmology in there.
Yeah.
I was told by when I lived in India, Brahmananda was here. Brahmananda Prabhu, he loved to go and research these things in New Delhi. But that's a very important question, that what happens to the living entities when Lord Brahma goes to sleep? They go into a dorm. Are they also sleeping inside of Brahma's? Is it in his body or? Yeah.
I personally would love to hear from you, or maybe somebody else. Of course, we're discussing it today, so like you're sharing some interest. So maybe next time we meet, you might have come across some other detailed information. But your explanation is quite okay for me for now.
Yeah, I'll do some research because I have a few literatures here presented by some quite qualified devotees in South India that put together a book on cosmology from the various Vedic literatures, primarily from Srimad Bhagavatam, but also from Vishnu Purana. And I'll do some research, so next time we meet, I'll have some notes on that.
Thank you so much. So, if anyone may have something to share, please. Oh, Govinda Prabhu, please, you'll be on mute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanava pranams. All glories to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, my question is still on the scientists. When we talk of devotional service is what is known as a voluntary acceptance of service to Krishna. Now, when one voluntarily perform any activity that is beneficial for other living entities, he may not particularly bring Krishna to the center of that activity. But that activity may be beneficial for the living entities who are also the children of Krishna. Now, without the scientific help by the scientists, I believe this whole world would have been in dark. It would all be in darkness. Without the scientific research or the scientific contribution by these scientists, millions and billions of people would have been dead within one day. By the help of these scientists, we're taking medications. By the help of the scientists, there are sophisticated machines in the hospital that diagnoses and does all kinds of operations and bring people to life, and so many wonderful things going on. Without the scientists, the scientists are like the secondary creators of here, especially here on our Earth planet. So without them, where would we have been then? So they may not directly performing devotional service. So what they are doing, would they have any kind of benefit spiritually from what they are doing? Because I believe they are contributing a lot to the whole world, knowingly or unknowingly.
Well, we have to really look at this from various perspectives. For one thing, we have to know that prior to a few thousand years ago, and we're in the 14th Manvantara right now, that the science was done by mantra, that these rishis, they had power to actually bring a dead body to life by their powers. We read about this in the Vedas. We also know that they had many scientific abilities through mantra, and that Prabhupada once mentioned that all these mechanical and machines, the demons, they love to produce this kind of machinery and so on. Now, if we actually look at the amount of people being killed in the womb, if we look at the amount of people being killed by cancer, if we look at the amount of people being killed by heart disease, and many researchers, scientific researchers, place the blame on, all our industrial enterprises for these, what do we call, modern diseases, modern pathologies. Then on one side, we're helping people. On the other side, there's so many repercussions or reactions from our inventions. There's a huge awareness of cancer, pollution of our environment. These are big topics that are being addressed throughout the world. And it's basically from the inventions we have made. So you really have to look at it from different perspectives. Now, ultimately, the real problems of life are birth, death, old age, and disease. Even if the doctor can, extend your life for another 20 years, the death rate's still 100%. And at the time of death, it's described by Lord Kapila Dev, it's described by Sukadev Goswami in the 5th chapter, in the 5th canto. The 3rd canto describes how the person at the time of death is dragged by the Yamadutas to the Yama Sadhana, the hellish planets, where they're punished. And then they're prepared, as Krishna says in the Gita, Tatha Pralinas Tamasa Mudho Jonisu Jayate, that in the next life, if they haven't educated themselves to know themselves as a soul, and servant of God, then in the mode of ignorance, they take birth in the animal species. So this is the real problem. Not that we can, postpone someone's death for, a few years. Or that, yeah, we have so much communication abilities. We've got satellites flying around. We can fly to Hong Kong from Nigeria or something. These are all quantitative accomplishments. But what about qualitative accomplishments? What about the qualities of life? We're witnessing, and Prabhupada writes in his purport, that Americans are wondering what the heck's going on in America. The children are murdering children. People are raping and murdering innocent people. It's complete chaos. It's not the American dream, it's the American nightmare, and everyone's following America. So this idea of material advancement without proper vision isn't really advanced. It's actually it's a recipe for disaster, basically. I've lived in these places, the US, and there's nothing really very nice about living in these large cities where it's constant struggle for existence, and there's so much crime, so many problems, so much air pollution. I mean, I lived in Los Angeles, you can hardly breathe. There's so much air pollution from so many cars and different machines. So when you say science has made advancement, we have to look at there's one person called Fridtjof Capra, and he's a nominee for a Nobel Award he's from Sweden, I believe, Scandinavia. And he wrote a book called The Dark Side of Growth. And he pointed out that the biggest money maker in the world is the selling of arms, the selling of weapons and arms, tools of destruction. And the second biggest money maker in the world is pharmaceuticals, where people are taking all these drugs, but there's so many side effects and so many negative reactions to what kind of medications they're taking. So we have to really take a look at it through the eyes of through the lens of analytical study and repercussions and so on, as well as through the eyes of scripture. You can gain so much in life, but at the time of death, you have to address, there is repercussions for what you have done in this world in terms of quality, the quality of life. Prabhupada said slaughterhouses, this is a civilization of slaughterhouses. Therefore, there is so much suffering from violence. Violence breeds violence, and the animals are also citizens, praja. In the first canto, I believe the 10th chapter, it says that, let me see, Kama Vavarsha Parjanya, Sarva Kama Dugamahi, Sishi Chusmat Brajangavan. This verse says that during the reign of Mars Yudhisthira, all the mountains, the oceans, the rivers, they all supplied all the necessities of human beings. There was very little famine, very little disease. Everything was in harmony with Mother Nature. People were very, very happy. And the cows, their milk bags are so fatty that Shishichusmat means that the milk bags are so fatty, they were irrigating the pasturing grounds for Jagavan. So yeah, if you have, Prabhupada said that if you have a very spiritual dictator, leader like Mars Yudhisthira, Mother Nature cooperates. Mother Nature lines up behind you and supplies all the necessities of life in abundance. And people will be not only peaceful and happy, but prosperous as well. So that is the formula given by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, by Srimad Bhagavatam, by Sukadeva Goswami. And now we have what is called Ugra Karma, or Ugra means unbeneficial works meant to destroy civilization. This is in the 16th chapter. They engage in unbeneficial works meant to destroy their own civilization. I mean, how can we say things are that great when 40 million people were killed in World War II? If they have a nuclear war today, billions will die. So they discovered this bomb, and if they push the button, billions of people are going to be annihilated within a few days. So is it really that advanced? You know?
Yeah.
That's yeah. So let's follow that reason.
That's a very beautiful question and a very nice explanation to the question also. I don't know if Govinda Prabhu, you have something to say before I say something?
Yeah, oh yeah, Prabhu, thank you very much for this beautiful,
Hare Krishna.
beautiful answer. Actually, your lecture today is so satisfying.
Yeah.
It's full of nectar. Juice is just coming out of your mouth. And I believe the
Thank you.
devotees have enjoyed your talk today. And thank you very, very much. But this question of the scientists, I know they're causing a lot of havoc here in this world, but I believe the side of what they are doing is also beneficial. Now, my question is that if is it because I first asked about the lighting system here in the world, especially at night. If not because of this scientists, we shall all be in dark. Is it because of our karma that Krishna is not giving us the electricity naturally, and that the scientists have to come in to give us light? And the second question to that is that of the spiritual world. There's no question of electricity because everything there is self-effulgent, and so there's no electricity. There's no sun or moon or anything like that. What about a heaven planet? Heaven is no spiritual world. What is the source of the electricity?
Well, I mean, the heavenly planets is such a high level of material enjoyment. I'm sure they have some arrangement there, self-effulgent kind of planets and so on. But as far as your first point, do you think the Pandavas, there's a description of Hastinapur and Dwarka and Indraprastha, which is thousands of years ago, where they had all kinds of light, but it was naturally produced from Mother Nature, like maybe it was wood, or now in India they have gobar gas, where there's so much nitrogen in cow dung they can use it for cooking and so on. So they must have had some kind of arrangement. Also, it's described in that chapter I was talking about in the first canto. I think it's the 10th chapter. That the mountains, the rivers, the ocean, the earth itself, she was cooperating because of Maharaj Yudhishthira's great devotion to Lord Krishna. He was the emperor of the entire world. Prabhupada said Mahabharat meant the entire Bharatvarsha, which is all the various continents. Maharaj Yudhishthira ruled over all these continents. So they must have had some way of going over to Africa, or going over to Europe from India, or going over to the Far East. They must have had some kind of arrangements made, because Maharaj Yudhishthira sent his brothers over the entire Bharatvarsha, not just India, but the entire Bharatvarsha, and challenge with a challenge horse. And everyone paid homage to Maharaj Yudhishthira. We have to understand, like Maharaj Priyavrata, he had so much yogic mystic power that with the wheels of his chariot, he created 7 islands, which we know about. Is it completely, it's beyond, it's their mystic power, their powers. I mean, it's described, we just had Ram Leela here, that Dasharat Maharaj, he ruled for 60,000 years, the entire area of Bharatvarsha in Treta Yuga. So it's very difficult for our little tiny brains in Kali Yuga to expand and understand, the powers that these personalities had. I mean, Arjuna destroyed 600 million soldiers, warriors died in 18 days on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I mean, Arjuna had all these powers given to him by Indra, Lord Shiva, the Gandiva bow. It's a completely, and it's all mantra. And all the personalities like Sukadev Goswami, all these rishis and Brahmins, they heard once. There was no written word. They were what's the word? Shrutidar. They heard once and it was stuck in their memories. Now we have such terrible brains. Manda Sumanda Batayo, we don't have any remembrance anymore. No memory. So different times, far more sophisticated than what we find ourselves here in Kali Yuga. We can hardly make it 80 or 90 years and the body falls apart. In Treta Yuga, I live 100,000 years or more. So it's
thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's very beautiful. Actually, just like Prabhuji is saying, the scientists, inventors, they're helping us a lot, but at the same time, we're suffering a lot from all these inventions. Because even though in today's world we have more hospitals than we used to have about 100 years ago, yet we have more diseased people than we had 100 years ago. It's said that just about, Prabhupada actually said that just like 70 years ago in India, about 10-mile radius, you may have just one medical doctor for the entire community. Today we have so many hospitals within maybe every 2 miles, like in the US, every 2-3 miles, you have a hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And then for one body, we have so many different experts. We have experts for ears, experts for teeth, experts for eyes, yet everybody is suffering. So, we'll try to make whatever good use we can make out of these things. But we are not living in better times, that's for sure.
No. And what's the use of all this advancement when the social fabric is so rotten?
Completely.
Kids are going into schools and killing other kids. People get the phone call, your 6-year-old son was just slaughtered by some other kid. This is going on. Now it's become natural. When I was growing up, it was very, it was shocking that people were doing mass shootings, but now it's just, another mass shooting. No, we can use, Prabhupada said, we use everything in the service of Krishna. Communication systems and telecasters and all these things we're using, telephones, everything. We can use it in the service of Krishna. Then it's, Prabhupada said, then it becomes putting a 1 in front of zeros. Airplanes, everything we're using, but we have to know that this is it has its problems. The industrial age, the industrialization has its problems, and we have to recognize that as well.
Yeah.
The downside of material advancement.
Madhava Prabhu, you have something to share, please. You may unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thanks
Krishna.
for giving me the opportunity. I just
Hare
want to
Krishna.
remind us, yes, Hare Krishna. I just want to remind us that this is the age of Kali Yoga. And so any advancement, it's just an imagination. Even the scientific we are talking about. Because immediately Krishna left the planet about 5,000 years ago, the personality of Kali, it came on board. So coming on board, everything is just deteriorating. So the more we deviate from the Vedic culture, then the worse the situation becomes. So the so-called advancement we are talking about, in the Dwapara age, people live longer years. Their stature is bigger, and definitely they are healthier. They are more healthy, and they have their way of taking care of themselves. They have a lot of potency that you cannot even imagine right now. But for the fact that those potencies are gone, then we're only left with some mundane scientific processes, which at the end of the day creating much more problems, complications for us. So, Hare Krishna, probably.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah. We solve one problem, create 10 problems.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We saw there's also in this book by Fridtjof Capra, he wrote 2 books. One was called The Tao of Physics, where he started introducing the idea of Hinduism, the idea of the soul. Second book was Dark Side of Growth. And in there, he's describing that they solve one problem and they create 10 other problems.
Yeah.
Like, it's extremely obvious because I lived in Los Angeles. It was so polluted in the 70s. Then they started imposing a lot of regulations against pollution from cars and so on. And the cancer rate was so high. So it's wealthy people, oh, look, we live in, this beautiful California. They're all dying from cancer. It was an epidemic. And so they had to, put the squeeze on emission controls, create emission controls for vehicles, so many things. So they're caught in, like Krishna says in the 16th chapter, mohajala samavritaha. They're like fish. They're caught in a net of illusion. Whichever way they turn, they're in the net of illusion, and they're trying to resolve the problems through their scientific inventions, but it creates many, many problems. Yeah. So many problems.
Well, Prabhuji, thank you so much. I was going to ask you if you still have a few more minutes with us, and if you would want to shed a little bit more light on this scientific approach we have in this world as of today, in contrast with what the Vedic scriptures tell us. And I'm requesting you, if possible, to say something in this regard, because especially during the COVID times, there were lots of devotees who felt, and some still continue to feel, that what is the use of medication? What is the use of medicine? What is the use of this precaution, that precaution? But we see, even in the ancient days, like you were talking about Dasharatha, who lived for such a long life, how does an earthly being travel all the way from this earth planet without any aircraft to go to the heavenly planet to support the Davis to fight against the demons. He was able to do it because he had the ability to do it. There were others who lived at this time, they couldn't do it, so they couldn't go to the heavenly planets. So in the same way, in this particular dispensation, some of us may be able to heal ourselves of many ailments. But those of us who cannot heal ourselves from ailments, we have to go see somebody else to help us. This is my belief. But I will want you to shed some light as to how we can hold fast the teachings of the scriptures and at the same time use what is available to us in the service of Guru and Krishna and not just condemning them.
Mm-hmm. Right. So when Tamal Krishna Maharaj in Bombay, he got a hernia. Robert said, "Oh, that's a mechanical, problem. So you go to the hospital and take advantage of their, wonderful medical science and fix your hernia."
Yeah.
It's almost like guerrilla warfare, We use whatever is useful, but we always keep in mind that the goal is always to remember Krishna and to serve Krishna. And one time they accused Srila Prabhupada, "You're always taking, jets all over the world. Why do you fly in these jets if you are condemning, and criticizing science?" Prabhupada told the reporter, he said, "If I did not use these implements and so on, that they would be completely useless."
Yeah.
That was his answer. He just chastised the reporter that if I didn't use them, it'd be completely useless. Well, basically, it's Kali Yuga, and they're using their brains how to try and overcome, all the various problems. Disease is ongoing. Different diseases are emerging throughout the world, different times. And they're busy trying to resolve the problem. Of course, they're very, very deeply embedded in the bodily concept of life. And when you go to a place like you live in these wealthy countries, they're so entrenched in the material body. It's the all in all. It's so important, that, medical science has made so much, so much progress and so on. But maybe if people didn't smoke cigarettes, now they're, the people have sued these cigarette companies in America, and these companies have gone over to places like Indonesia, where children are now dying from cancer because there's so much promotion. So again, the whole purpose of these massive corporations is money. Pfizer, in India, they brought this Roundup from this Monsanto company, and over 100,000 farmers committed suicide with this Roundup product, which it has a suicide seed. The seed never can be germinated again. So they'd sell it, and they'd sell this Roundup stuff. And all these farmers were going bankrupt. Over 100,000 of them committed suicide around Maharashtra. So great, you're making all this advancement, but there's all this fallout, a lot of fallout going on. So yeah, we want to take advantage. Like, this devotee from Ghana invited me to come to Africa. I said, sure, all I need is a plane ticket. For sure I'll come to Africa. So yeah, Prabhupada just traveled around the world preaching, we're going to use your technology. But ultimately he wanted us to have self-sufficient farms, varnashram system, dependence on the earth and cows, have a simple life. He said, build your homes out of, indigenous materials and so on. So this is Prabhupada's view for the Hare Krishna movement. But, if you have to, you can go to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hare
I
Krishna.
think it's kind of very level and practical preaching we've heard today. So thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Before Prabhuji, we call it a day today. Dear devotees, this is the second time Prabhuji has been so generous, kind to be on our platform. And so I'd like to read a little bit about who this special soul is. Prabhuji is by birth and family, materially line is from Guyana. And in fact, we have one god brother, you look very much like him, or I would say he looks very much like you. It's called Gita Govinda. Anytime I see you, you remind me so much of him. Very sweet devotee. Yes. So Prabhuji, of course, joined devotional service in the US at the age of 71 in Oregon, Portland.
Oh, in 1972. 72, I joined there.
Yes. It's amazing. I've come across quite a number of your peers who joined devotional service in 72, and they're all amazing devotees. So I think 72 was a very special year for Srila Prabhupada and his movement. He had lots of wonderful souls. And Prabhuji has been the president in so many places, in India and in the US here. Prabhuji is presently, actually, Prabhuji was sent to Vrindavan, and he stayed there for quite a number of years. And Prabhuji, Prabhuji, my apologies because I had to change your name because you were speaking and the name under your image was your wife's name. So okay. my apologies to your revered wife.
I'm using her phone. She has a better phone than mine.
Yeah, I can see that. So my apologies. But Prabhuji, as we speak now, is currently based in India with his family. And one last thing, Prabhuji, we may want you to share with us briefly is the secret or your approach to devotional service that has kept you in devotional service all these years till now and is still blooming. If you may share just one simple technique or blessings or whatever you do to be able to be here all these years, because it's easier to bloop. It's more difficult to stay in devotional service. Please.
Well, we can say faith in Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, but we can also say that one has to always feel himself at the bottom of the ladder. That, I'm the most fallen, I am a fool, I have absolutely no qualifications. If you look at me, I'm below all the other devotees. I try to practice that, Trinata Pisanichana, Tarori Vasahishana, throughout my life. Never try to become susceptible to ambitions within the movement. Being a big this, big that, VIP. No, we're all very, very, I feel like Prabhupada was saying, and one should feel oneself Lord in the straw in the street. So that's a feeling that, very fallen, you first. Everyone can be first. I'm in the back of the line kind of feeling. And always try to, in that way, Krishna will always remain with us. Bhaktisiddhanta describes this in the pastime of the Gundicha temple, that there's these weeds that sometimes come up when we're in devotional service, desire for fame and name and worship, followers, pratishta, puja, kutinati. We start fault finding. These are different obstacles that we have to keep cleaning out from the temple of the heart. Because if we keep, many times we'll be chanting, and Bhaktisiddhanta says, but you're watering the weeds instead of the devotional creeper. So we have to be very careful. So I try to be very careful and very diligent in my practice of devotional service, because for sure, I can say I've struggled through my 52 years with all kinds of problems, and we have to prevail, overcome them. Krishna will help us if we continue to struggle and do the right thing. Remain simple-hearted. Don't be duplicitous. That is the problem. Duplicity, that, I'm saying Prabhu, but actually you should serve me. Prabhu means master. All these devotees are our masters. They're my masters. How can I serve? How can I assist? How can I help? And so on. And always control the mind. Don't indulge the mind. Many devotees after 20, 30 years, we become complacent, or we fall under the spell of lamentation or despondency. Very dangerous. We have to continue like a neophyte. Good sadhana, good rounds, and never play with fire. Never play with Maya. She will gobble us up, chew us up, and spit us out. Never become complacent. She's very powerful. So I think my first, every morning I beg Krishna, please help me to be humble. Let me eat the dust from the feet of devotees. Eat the dust. Narottam Das Thakur. Let me take the dust from the feet of devotees and eat it. That way I'll remain humble. So that's what I can say.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I'm happy with myself asking you to say something, and I'm actually more happy hearing you give us this much wisdom. And I believe all the devotees truly and honestly appreciate what you shared with us. And we pray that we can try our best and live what you just shared with us from today till the end of time. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, and thank you, devotees, for being here. Prabhuji is in India. He's spent so much of his sleeping hours with us today. So I think it's time for us to let him take rest. And so in that sense, we're going to humbly and respectfully request all the assembled Vaishnava devotees to kindly unmute. And we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our dear uncle, His Grace Kripanidhi Prabhu. Jai.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama, Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Kalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa
Chakapatarubhyascha,
Titanam
Kripasindhubhya
Pavanabhyo, Vaishnavibhyo,
Patitanam
Namo
Pavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Until
Krishna.
next time.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
All glories
Hare
to
Krishna.
Kripanidhi Prabhu Ki Jai. Hare
Jai.
Krishna. Well, devotees, we thank you all for being here as always. And I believe especially the last statement Prabhuji made makes a lot of sense. We all may try to live that way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very well. So we see you all tomorrow by Guru.